Hello everyone. We were discussing verbs in the previous lecture and we've already discussed first part of the verb, which was helping verbs, wherein we've discussed the linking verbs and the auxiliary verbs. Today we'll be dealing with the second kind of verb, which is the main verb. Let us see the emojis that are there. They have been deliberately kept here. For example, the first emoji that shows black colored lips. Now if I explain this emoji, it will be kiss or kissing. So if I say I kissed my son, so that kissed is an action that I did, therefore it becomes a main verb. Likewise, I earn a lot of money, so maybe that emoji signifies a lot of money. My heart broke at the news. Again, it is a kind of action that took place, not literally, but then in general it could be analogous. Likewise, for I don't know how to explain this pig kind of a emoji, but then yes, for the ziplocked, I won't say anything. So say again is a emoji is a main verb that we are taking into consideration here. Likewise, if you see any other emoji, it will have one meaning or the other, and that meaning would express a certain action. So therefore, we say that action telling words in most generic forms may be termed as main verbs. Let us try to understand the same thing using a few examples. I write, children play, they run, we laugh. All these particular bold words, the words that have been bolded here, write, play, run, laugh, these are main verbs. They are showing or depicting a certain action that the doer or the subject is doing. First sentence, the doer is I. Second is children. Third, the subject would be they. And then we have the subject as we. And every subject involved in each kind of sentence is performing a certain action. So these action displaying words are known as main verbs. Main verbs can be classified in three categories: transitive and intransitive. The transitive verbs will be those wherein this verb, the action that we're talking, is getting transferred from the subject to the object. For example, I am teaching you. So teaching is the action that the doer I is performing, and that action that we're talking about is getting transferred from I to you. So there is a receiver to receive that action that the doer is doing. Such kind of verbs which are getting transferred are known as transitive verbs. Intransitive, wherein we do not have any object to receive the action that the doer is doing. I am teaching, so I happens to be the subject, teaching is the object, but then teaching is the verb, but then there is no object to receive that action. The object, the receiver, is missing. Such sentences wherein we have verbs or actions that are not getting transferred because of the absence of the receiver, such kind of verbs are termed as intransitive verbs. Trans means motion. Transmit, transit, any word that you have, transfer, any word that starts with trans would mean that there is some kind of a motion involved. The second category to main verbs is dynamic and stative. Dynamic, wherein we can use, there are certain verbs which we can use in continuous tense, ing formation is possible, and stative, wherein the ing form is not possible. It is possible though, but then the moment you have that ing form to that verb, to that word that you're using, the meaning will change. Dynamic, for example, the words like it could be any word, any random word. For example, travel. So traveling, I am traveling, I like to travel. The moment you have stative, stative means now stative is something which wherein we cannot have continuous form. It would be something, for example, the word like love. I love you. I love you, it is a kind of an action, but the moment I put it as loving, I am loving you, now the meaning of the sentence changes. Therefore, such words that can have ing formation without the change in the meaning of the sentence are known as dynamic verbs, and the verbs that may not have a continuous tense usage, and the moment we have a continuous tense being used with for those kind of verbs, the meaning of the sentence will change, are called as stative. They will define the state of being. Regular and irregular verbs are those wherein regular verbs will be those which can be derived from the base verb by adding ed, where this deriving is the deriving of the past participle form of verb and the simple past kind of verb. So first form of verb, second form of verb, third form of verb. So from the simple present you can derive, which is the base form, you can derive the past simple and the past participle form of verbs by adding ed to the base verb. Cook becomes cooked, cooked. So first form of cook is cook, second is cooked. You've added ed to the word cook, and third form also is cooked. Irregular verbs are those which either change in the form from base form to the past participle form, or in between the simple past form, or it could be, for example, the word like sleep, sleep, slept, slept. So what we're doing is the second and the third forms the same, but though they're same, we've added a t to make them into second or the third form. Or for example, the words that do not change at all, cut, 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 it remains same for all three verb forms. So for all such cases, we may call such verbs as irregular verbs. Let's go into the details of all three categories. Let us have a look at the transitive and the intransitive kind of verbs. So transitive verbs, as I said, these are the verbs that are actions that are getting transferred. These will always have a direct object to receive the action that the subject is doing. For example, somebody killed the dragon. Somebody is the doer, killed is the action, and who was killed, who got killed? The dragon. So there was someone to receive that action, which is killed. Intransitive verbs would not be having any object because they don't have any object, therefore that action is not getting transferred. He died. So he died, there is nobody to receive that action, of course, therefore he died. Died is the intransitive form of verb. We can have the usage of same kind of verb in both the senses. I am teaching you, like I said, the moment I am teaching, use the sentence. Teaching is a transitive verb. The moment I say I am teaching, I haven't included the object, so teaching here becomes the intransitive verb. So you can have one verb being stated as a transitive or intransitive verb depending upon the usage. Okay, for example, a verb is transitive when it is followed by an object, as we discussed. So Thud sneezed on Gul. Who did Thud sneeze on? On Gul, which was the object here. There was an object to receive that action. Thud sneezed loudly. So he sneezed loudly. Who did Thud sneeze on? The object is missing. The receiver is missing. It is just quoted as it was a loud sneeze, but there is no object to receive that sneeze, that loud sneeze. Therefore, for the second case, that sneezed will be acting as an intransitive verb. Okay, so let us now discuss the dynamic and stative form of verbs. Dynamic form of verbs are action describing words. They may be used with continuous tenses. Continuous tenses would mean that you may have an ing form of verb possible. Ing would denote that the action is on. Whenever, in whatever time frame you're talking about the action, in that time frame the action is continuous. That's how we call them continuous tenses. We can have simple continuous, present continuous, we can have past continuous, or we can also have future continuous. I am teaching you is present continuous. I was teaching you, past continuous. I will be teaching you, future continuous. So for all those words wherein that ing formation of verb is possible, for such cases the verbs will be called as dynamic verbs. Examples, the words like hit, kill, fight, grow, go, throw, explode, etc. All these verbs may have continuous formation of word. Hit, hitting, killing, fighting, growing, going, throwing, exploding, etc. All such kind of verbs that can be used with continuous tenses are called as dynamic, and they will be representing certain action. Stative verbs, on the contrary, are those that describe not an action but a state of situation, a state or a situation. So state or a situation would mean, for example, can you hear him speak? So this is a situation that you're trying to say, or maybe the state of somebody, whether that somebody can hear or not. He was trying to impress me. So impress again is a state. It is a kind of a situation that we are calling. Therefore, the verbs that are used to uh, have any particular state or situation being described using them are known as stative. The words like love, like, prefer, impress. Now the moment we are adding an ing to it to make them into continuous form, the meaning of the sentence will change. Therefore, stative will be describing the state of being. Dynamic will be describing the action. Here are a few examples of dynamic verbs and stative verbs. Dynamic verbs like become, drink, eat, go, grow, learn, read, run, sleep, talk, type, walk, watch, work, write. Stative verbs: hate, like, love, prefer, doubt, seem, know, own, recognize, understand, think. Now here think is not the process but have an opinion. I think I'm going correct. Mind, again the meaning would be care about. Do you mind putting off your shoes? Have means ownness. So all these words are stative verbs. Still confused with what dynamic and stative verbs are and how do you differentiate? Let me give you some other examples. Read that first sentence that happens to be the tagline of MACD. I'm loving it. So I'm loving it. It uses the ing form. Loving, loving. Now love, as we said, love is a word that is stative, but we're using ing with it. So how do we know that when do we have to use ing and when we don't have to use that ing is the most critical question. Whenever there is no control of the doer over the action, we call it stative verb. Whenever there is no control of the doer over the action, it is a stative verb. Continuous tenses, whenever we have continuous tenses, means the doer of the action is in full control, is in the driving seat. He or she is controlling whatever is happening. Therefore, for such cases, we say that continuous tenses will be dynamic verbs wherein we can control things. I am feeding the sharks. I am feeding the sharks. I can easily control it. I'm feeding the sharks. The moment I feel not like feeding them, my mind will give me a signal. My brain will give me a signal that, okay, you don't have to feed the sharks anymore. So here, I will stop doing the action that I was doing. Therefore, the action that is being performed, which is feeding, is in control. The moment we are controlling it means we are on the driving seat. Therefore, such verbs or such actions will be called as dynamic. Things that are not in control, your heart is not in your control, your mind is not in your control. What do you believe? What do you understand? What do you know? Who do you know? Etc. All these things are not in your control. They're just there. Existence, your existence, somebody else's existence. You can't explain that, the reason behind that existence to anybody. Perception, how you perceive things, how are you perceiving this lecture, how do you perceive me as a faculty, how do you perceive your peers, your colleagues, your classmates. That perception again is something that you cannot control. It is there, it comes by default. For such cases where the feelings cannot be controlled, we cannot have ing form, because the moment you are adding ing would mean that you have changed the form. The moment you are adding ing would mean now you can control the actions. The moment you're controlling the actions, it would not remain a stative verb but become a driving kind of a verb wherein you're driving, you have the power and the control, and will become dynamic. The next category of verbs are regular verbs and irregular verbs. Now, regular verbs are the ones that follow a same pattern. They have some base form, and then from the base form we derive the simple past and the past participle form. And how do we derive it? We derive these two by adding an ed to the base form. Cook becomes cooked, and third form also is cooked. So I cooked the food, I cooked the food, I had cooked the food. So first form, second form, and third form. Likewise, turn, turned, turned. Arrive, arrived, arrive. So there, for all the regular verbs, we'll be deriving all the other two forms from the base form only, and the next two forms, the second and the third forms, the simple past and the past participle form of verbs that have been derived from the base form, they will be alike. They will be just ed word added to the base form. Irregular verbs, wherein one kind, the verbs that have the same base form, past form and past participle, all three forms are same. Cut, cut, cut. Hurt is same for all three. Let is same for all three. Put is same for all three. So um, he cut the tree into two. He had cut the tree into two, and he cut the tree into two. So both the present form, past form, and the past participle form are alike for cut. Similarly, for the other words, all the three forms, so first kind of irregular verbs will be wherein all the three forms of verbs, the base form, the simple past form, and the past participle form are same, alike for all three type of verbs. Next category of irregular verbs are the verbs that have the same past simple and past participle form. So what do? And why are they irregular? Because they have not been derived from the first base form. Bring, brought, brought. So first form is bring. The next two forms are same, but they don't seem to have been derived from the base form. Likewise, make, made, made. I make pudding. I made pudding. I had made pudding when he reached home. I keep my promises. I kept my promises. I had kept my promise till the time he was true to me. I teach you, I taught you in the previous semester. I had taught you this topic before you had joined the university. So that is how we are using the three forms of verbs, wherein the second form, simple past, and the third form, past participle, are alike, are common, are same, and they have no connection whatsoever from the past simple, that from the base form. That means we are not deriving these from the base form. There are some different words, but these different words are common for both past simple and past present. The third kind of irregular verbs that we may have are the verbs that have same base and same past participle form. And of course, and the second form of verb, which is the simple past, that differs. Like for instance, the words come. Come, I come to the college daily. I came to the college yesterday. I had come to the college. So first form and last form are same. Came, second form, past simple form, that differs. Likewise, run, ran, run. Become, became, become. So that whenever we have irregular verbs, there will be some irregularity involved. Either it could be that all the three verb forms are same, or it could be that the first and the last form are same, or it also could be that the last two forms are same, but the first form is different. Also, we may have the next category of irregular verbs. The last category of irregular verbs are the verbs that have different base form, past simple and past present. All three forms are different. Break, broke, broken, choose, chose, chosen, did, did, done, see, saw, seen. So, be, was, been. Uh, I see you. I saw you. I had seen you. Or I have seen you. In any of the cases, the three verbs that we're using, the first form, the second form, and the third form, they're all different. So with this, we come to the end of this lecture on verbs. So just to summarize, we have done main two kinds of verbs, the helping verb and the verbs that are called as main verbs. Whenever it comes to helping verbs, we may have two categories to it: linking verbs, that is linking the subject with the action, and then we may have helping auxiliary verbs. Auxiliary verbs can be principal, which are usually used to tell to with the main verb to tell the user that what tense is it, or it could be a modal that expresses definiteness, possibility, probability, absence of any such thing, it could be seeking permissions, it could be telling you about the ability of a somebody of a certain person. It could also have a meaning of obligation or moral obligation. So all such kind of verbs are known as modals that express a certain kind of a meaning. And then we have third category to the auxiliary verbs, which is semi-modals. Semi-modals are those that can be used as both the primary and the principal and the modals. And then we discussed the main verbs, wherein we've discussed the main verbs depending upon object, wherein we have done the verbs like transitive and intransitive. Then we did the verbs that are uh, the kinds wherein we are taking into consideration the dynamic verbs and the stative verbs. Dynamic is something that we can have an ing form added to, uh, which wherein the user of the verb, doer of the action, is having control of the things that the person is doing. The moment we are saying that there is a stative verb involved means the doer of the action does not have any control over the action that the person is performing. It is something inherent, it is something default, it is something involuntary. So whenever it is that kind of an action that over which we do not have any control, we will call it as a stative verb. It is defining the state of being of something or the situation. The last category of verbs is regular verbs or irregular verbs. Regular verbs are those that are derived from the base form and both the next two forms, that is the past simple and the past present participle form. These are alike, and we make them using an ed after the base verb. Irregular verbs may be all alike, all three forms alike, like let. It could be that the first form and the last form is matching. Come, came, come. It could be that the second and the third forms are matching. Keep, kept, kept. So we can have, or we can have complete different three forms. For example, be, was, been. So this is how we will summarize verbs. But in general, for you to identify, of course, in case of modals, you'll have to identify whether the verb or the word is trying to express a certain feeling or thing or not. Unless it is that, for the main action verbs, you will only have to see that whether there is any action involved or not, and if at all it is that action is getting transferred or not, for the cases of transitive and intransitive verbs. That should be all about verbs. We'll be discussing it as and when we have an interactive session. Thank you so much. I hope I have satisfied all your queries and concerns through this lecture. In case there are any, we are always there to help. Thank you so much for watching. Have a great day ahead.